Hi, I'm Jeanette Roche. This is Forum Daily West. Here are some of the top stories we've been following. Freedom Convoy organizer Pat King sentenced to 3 months house arrest. Plus, Alberta's Premier and Health Minister respond to the lawsuit and controversy over private surgical contracts. And Canadian investigators recover the black box of the Delta plane that crashed in Toronto. Thanks so much for joining us. Freedom Convoy organizer Pat King of Alberta heard his sentence today. He has been handed 3 months house arrest and includes 100 hours of community service at a food bank or men's shelter. It comes on top of the 9 months he served before and during his trial. King was found guilty on 5 charges for his role in the 2022 protest that took over downtown Ottawa for several weeks. Justice Charles Hackland says King is to remain in his home, not return to Ottawa except for court appearances, and to stay away from other convoy leaders. The Crown recommended to Justice Hackland that King be given 10 years in prison, the maximum sentence for mischief. Of the 21 injured passengers involved in Monday's plane crash at Toronto Pearson's Airport, 20 have been released from hospital. Delta Airlines gave the update today as investigators work to determine what caused a regional flight from Minneapolis to crash upon landing at the airport on Monday and flip over onto its roof on the tarmac. The black box has been recovered and Canadian authorities have sent it off for analysis. All 80 people on board the plane survived. Meanwhile, it's been an unsettling and very sad month for air travel. 2 people were killed today after 2 fixed-wing single-engine planes collided in midair outside of Tucson, Arizona. It's the second incident in Arizona this month. On February 10th, 2 private jets collided at Scottsdale Airport, killing 1 person and injuring 4. Prior to that, on February 6th, a small plane carrying 10 people crashed in Alaska after losing speed and altitude and vanishing from the radar. On January 31st, in Philadelphia, a medical transport plane crashed in a residential area northeast of Philadelphia, leaving 6 people on the plane and 1 person on the ground dead. And just 2 days prior to that, 67 people were killed when an American Airlines plane collided with a military Black Hawk helicopter while on final approach into Washington, D.C. National Airport. Both the chopper and the plane ended up in the Potomac River. Today, for the first time, the Alberta government publicly addressed a lawsuit and allegations against them concerning high-level corruption surrounding medical contracts. In response, Premier Danielle Smith says she's making some changes by appointing Darren Headley as Alberta's Deputy Minister of Health. Andre Tremblay will continue as the interim CEO and official administrator of Alberta Health Services. This comes on the heels of former AHS CEO Anthana Mentzelopoulos' allegations of sketchy deals pushed by Alberta officials.
To deal with surgical backlogs, Alberta Health Services followed the strategic direction provided by previous governments, signed contracts with charter surgical facilities to help alleviate pressure on our health system and increase capacity. And because it has worked, we tried to expand these centres through new competitive bid processes. In terms of the latest RFP process for new facilities, the former CEO of Alberta Health Services made some very troubling allegations, and those allegations are serious and they are being investigated. We have asked the Auditor General to expedite his review so that we can have answers as soon as possible.
Last week, the former CEO of AHS filed a statement of claim. Upon review, the allegations and claims that have been made against me are false, while others will have to be investigated further as part of the Auditor General's work and the government's external third-party investigation that is being set up by Deputy Minister McPherson. We will be filing our statement of defence in the coming weeks and will be vigorously, and I mean vigorously, defending against this claim.
In her defense, Mentzelopoulos made close to 77 claims in her statement of facts. She is seeking compensation in the amount of $1.7 million. On January 8th, she was stripped of her role via a Zoom call, and she is suing the province for wrongful dismissal, claiming she was let go for investigating overpriced contracts. Meanwhile, Alberta's opposition NDP has been very vocal about the issue, even calling the alleged scandal corrupt care. Edmonton Glenora MLA Sarah Hoffman is the Shadow Minister for Health. She is calling on the province to put a stop to privatized health care.
The severity of these allegations of corruption and interference when dealing with surgical contracts in our healthcare system is a major concern for Albertans, especially for those who are still waiting for surgeries. We know that our public healthcare needs investment. And when Danielle Smith was running for leader, she promised that she'd fix healthcare in 90 days.
The province will be releasing their budget next week, but will we see a surplus or a deficit? Tyler Dawson, legislative correspondent for the National Post, weighs in.
The last budget update, I think they'd forecast about a $4.5 billion surplus, which, I mean, that's an unbelievable amount of money if it was in either of our pockets, but it's not really that much money from a government budgeting perspective. And so it's not totally clear if that surplus will have vanished, if it'll have shrunk. And, you know, the annual budget making process is generally made challenging by oil prices. If oil prices are really good, there's a lot of money coming in from resource royalties that can then be, you know, spent on various things. If it's been a bad year for oil prices, then the province tends to head towards a deficit. So that's sort of the open question here right now is what has the price of oil been doing for the past year, and how is that going to sort of be reflected in the budget?
Catch my full interview with Tyler Dawson, the Alberta correspondent for the National Post, coming up later in the show. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is speaking with European leaders today to address comments from U.S. President Donald Trump that suggest Ukraine started the war with Russia. Government officials from the U.S. and Russia met in Saudi Arabia to discuss ending the war with Ukraine, but Ukraine did not have a seat at the table. Trudeau says Ukraine must have that seat at the table in any peace talks as Washington and Moscow discuss ways to end the war. He adds that democracy is at risk if more countries are allowed to invade their neighbors. In fact, President Donald Trump has called Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky a, quote, dictator without elections. Foreign Affairs correspondent Lisa Daftari explains what Trump's tactics might mean.
Kind of. He's bullying his way to a ceasefire. He's basically telling Zelensky, this is what I think of you. You know, you've basically power grabbed your way, you know, to be where you are, which is ironic given the fact that we're dealing with Putin on the other side. But, you know, he's basically saying, look, you know, I'm going to belittle you in order to get, you know, you to come around and not really play me like a fiddle the way you did the Biden administration.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu released a video message Wednesday, a day before Hamas is expected to release the bodies of 4 hostages, including a mother and her 2 children, who have long been feared dead. In this video, Netanyahu says, quote, the heart of the whole world needs to break because here we see who we are dealing with. Monsters, end quote. Canada's military leaders say the number of those recruited to our armed forces is encouraging. General Jenny Kerrigan, chief of the Defense Staff, says the Canadian Armed Forces recruitment numbers have stabilized, and she's cautiously optimistic the military will be back to full strength by 2029.
Last year, the situation had stabilized for the first time, so the downward trend was stopped last year. So last year we finished around 250 over. That's including the attrition numbers. So this year, again, we are very encouraged by the results. So as of today, we are 1,300 over and above. So that's a net increase of 1,300 up to date. But by the end of March, the numbers will even be better.
Around 500,000 vaccines have been ordered by the Public Health Agency of Canada for potential bird flu threats. Ottawa says the shot is meant for people who may be at increased risk, such as those who have had ongoing contact with infected animals and their environments. They also say the risk to the general public is low. Back here in Alberta, the union representing custodians and maintenance workers at 2 Calgary school boards will serve a 72-hour strike notice. Roughly 800 workers from the Calgary Board of Education and 350 employees from the Calgary Catholic School District could hit picket lines on Monday morning. The Canadian Union of Public Employees says events at schools this weekend could be impacted. They join more than 4,000 staff already on strike in Edmonton, Fort McMurray, and Parkland County over a wage dispute with their employers. Lethbridge police on Wednesday said they have charged a 66-year-old man of sexual assault of an 11-year-old boy. Police responded to a report on February 10th at Stan Seawick Pool, where it was determined that the man approached the child in the men's change room and sexually assaulted him there. The man, Kwan Phuoc Tran of Lethbridge, was arrested the next day on the 11th without incident. Tran is charged with sexual assault and sexual interference. There have been, sadly, multiple reports across Canada this week of deaths caused by carbon monoxide poisoning. The cold weather often can lead to incidents where people find themselves in danger of the so-called silent killer in attempting to warm their homes, vehicles, and other shelters. BCN's Landon Hickok has more details on some of those stories.
Thanks, Jeanette. There have been no shortage of calls of carbon monoxide poisoning and incidents across Canada, especially with extreme cold in the west and heavy snowfall in the east. In one instance, Northern Alberta RCMP responded to a call that 2 men were found dead in an ice fishing tent at Crow Lake Provincial Park. Investigations found that emissions from a nearby heating source was to blame for the carbon monoxide poisoning.
Carbon monoxide, actually how it's created is it's fuels not being burned completely. So it could be anything from natural gas to gasoline to wood, things like that. If it's not working, the devices are not working completely, the fuel is not burned completely, and that's what causes the carbon monoxide.
In Calgary, police say that 1 woman has died and a child was admitted to the hospital after crews were called to a Southwest home on Tuesday. It was determined that carbon monoxide leaked from a furnace in the home and that no carbon monoxide alarms were installed in the house. The child remains in stable condition.
If you start to feel very lightheaded, you can get headaches, you can get blurred vision, things like that. You just don't feel well. Don't take it as just, I'm just having a bad day and I'm not feeling well. If it's a risk there, you need to get to some fresh air and you need to go get some assistance for that, because that is some of the symptoms you will feel, is an awful lot of just not feeling well, dizziness, upset stomach, and blurred vision for sure.
And in Montreal this week, a man was found unresponsive in his vehicle that was heavily covered in snow and with the engine still running. Emergency crews found the 57-year-old man at the time under cardiac arrest, but was pronounced dead later at the hospital. Investigators say that snow was blocking the exhaust pipe. That was to blame for the carbon monoxide poisoning, which was very likely a factor in his death. Now in Lethbridge, we haven't had many known reports of carbon monoxide incidents over this recent cold snap, but Lethbridge Fire and Emergency Services are vocal on carbon monoxide awareness, and I previously told BCN measures that people can take to ensure another tragic event does not occur here.
Eliminating a lot of the things that will cause carbon monoxide, which for example could be maybe faulty equipment, so it's a good idea to get people to come in and test your equipment annually just to make sure everything's working well, like your gas fireplace, your gas furnace, stoves, anything like that. You want to make sure that you're not running vehicles too close to air intakes or inside your garage.
Chief Fire Marshal Hicks is also additionally adamant that carbon monoxide detectors are paramount to that of smoke detectors, and one should install in every level of their home or business. Jeanette?
Beyond Remembrance Day, we must remember our veterans throughout the year. That is why the Veterans Association Food Bank, Lethbridge, Alberta, invites the community to join the Re-Gift Your Gift Cards campaign as a simple yet meaningful way to show your appreciation. Lee Willoughby, the charity's operations coordinator, explains what this initiative consists of.
And we could use those gift cards in a couple ways. We could use them and go get the core of the stuff we need here for our bank, or we can put them in hampers that we send out every month to our clients. And you usually put in about $200 worth of Walmart gift cards. So that would augment these cards here, and it would be substantial. We're starting to have more and more veterans that require help since we've opened last year, and we've noticed that still we have people that do not know we're here. And these gift cards are for anything that they need. They can get groceries, they can get personal items, they can get everything they actually need there with these cards.
Loblaw has announced a new $10 billion investment over the next 5 years, which includes plans to open 80 new grocery and pharmacy stores this year. Loblaw says about 50 of the new stores will be discount grocers. Here's Michelle Zadikian of the Canadian Press with more.
Retail expert Bruce Winder says Loblaw is reading the room. Shoppers have been hungry for grocery deals and discounts as inflation and high interest rates take a toll on household budgets. It has many consumers flocking to discount grocery stores. Loblaw, along with Metro and Sobeys parent Empire, have noticed sales at their discount brands have outpaced those at their traditional stores, so they've taken to opening more discount banners like No Frills, Freshco, and Food Basics. They've also been converting existing stores into discount brands. While inflation has eased, Winder says he thinks the deal hunting trend is here to stay and could even continue growing.
That is your Forum Daily West report. I'm Jeanette Roche. Thanks so much for watching.